I wanted to make a calendar that little girls, and this is going to sound so fucking backwards because it's topless and sometimes fully nude, but that like little girls or little like trans girls or little femme boys like could look at and see people and go, oh, they're hot. And that's what my body looks like. I'm hot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can put people, if you can showcase people the way we have seen like big boobed blondes showcased their whole life, then like they will maybe see how beautiful they are and other people will see it and then themselves feel beautiful. So that was the goal.
That's powerful. That's really cool. What's up, guys? It's episode 5 here of the Dropcast. We have Miles, aka Nomadic Madame, with us. Here to talk some fun stuff and see what you're all up to.
I think the first question is, who the fuck is Nomadic Madame?
Yeah, I see her all over the place.
I don't know who that is. I kind of want to meet her too. Who am I? I am a photographer. I'm a person that sees the world visually. I am a person that thinks about the femme in all its expansiveness and ways to make everyone feel beautiful and capture it visually through photography. Also, the narrative of that. Mm-hmm. So, if that makes any sense, I hope it does.
I would say your photos definitely tell a story. I mean, every time I see them, your portraits stand out for sure. When you see a photo like that you've done, it's like, oh, that's a Miles photo, you know, and that speaks for itself, and that's like a huge milestone as an artist, I feel like.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It happened kind of unintentionally that way. But
do you want to talk about how you kind of found your lane at all, or like?
I guess so. I went to school for creative writing and wrote my whole life. And when I moved back to Michigan, I went to school in San Francisco I got my undergrad at San Francisco State, and I moved home to live in my mom's loft and figure out what was next for me, and thinking that I was going to move down south, like to New Orleans or something, to get into publishing. Like I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And I needed to start paying on my student loans. So I got into makeup because I was always good at it. And I would sit there at Mac and like do this beautiful makeup that told the story, and, you know, with color theory and textures and light and shadows, which is literally everything that photography is. Mm-hmm. And I would try to take a picture with my iPhone 4, and it would be gross under tungsten light, and I couldn't figure out why it was so bad, I guess. Mm-hmm. And like, this was also at a time when like Instagram was really starting to take off. People had probably been using Instagram for about 4 or 5 years, but like artists were really starting to like get their teeth in it. So every time, and it was also before the algorithm had changed and like you could see things as they were posted. Mm-hmm. And so it was this time when you got to be enriched by your social media, by all this beautiful stuff happening in the world. And I just asked someone, like, I'm thinking about taking a photography class to learn how to take a better photo for makeup. And they said, well, you should take a film class, like, because it'll teach you the reason why digital photos are the way that they are. It'll teach you like from the ground up, and everything else will make sense, which was the right thing to do.
Now, when you say film, do you mean like not video? You mean like
darkroom? I took a darkroom class.
Yeah, okay. The fundamentals. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was good for me because it was also extremely meditative, and you can't have your phone on because the light will literally ruin the film, and you have to worry about your timing and, you know, like agitating 10 seconds every minute. Mm-hmm. And and then you literally watch something come from nothing. Like film is just the most magical thing, especially the more you get involved with it. Like film is amazing if you just take it and send it in. But when you get to develop it and then even enlarge it, there's not a feeling like it. I mean, I've never given birth, but you're giving birth to something from your brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I totally agree.
And someone had to think about that. Like someone had to figure out how to do that in the first place.
Yeah, all the chemicals, like at all the right temperatures and times and all of that. Like,
yeah, and use all these dangerous chemicals in the
that we now know are dangerous.
I'm sure. Yeah, there was definitely some film fires back in the day.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I actually remember learning about a couple of those that were pretty detrimental back in the day when they were like first figuring stuff out, like back in the 40s or 30s, even earlier. So
I wonder how many people have gotten like silver nitrate poisoning.
Oh yeah, that too.
Like,
well, it's like the whole entire term Mad Hatter. You know, it comes from mercury because they would put mercury on the hats to keep them stiff.
yeah.
And then when you're working with it 24/7, it kind of slowly makes you go insane. So that's why hatters back in the day went insane, and everybody came up with the term of Mad Hatter. It's because they were working with mercury.
I wonder
Don't quote me on that.
I wonder what beautiful things those people were seeing in their brain. So this world is so dark that maybe we all need to go a little crazy.
The long-term effects of developing film.
Yeah. So I think you have a super unique style, and I think a lot of people, I don't want to say, where am I going with this? I think you have a super unique style that some people have tried to mimic, but like there's still a thing where when you see it, you can still tell it's a Miles photo. And I think that comes from not only your lighting and your makeup, but just kind of like your creative direction with all of it.
It probably comes from the way I interact with the models, because I've been trying to figure out what it is that makes my photos distinct, where I don't know that I'm doing anything specifically differently than other people. I mean, I have a way that I edit, but I think even before I was editing this way, that what you're saying is still kind of true. And I think that I am still growing. So I am looking all the time to other people to get inspiration and, to the past a lot. So yeah, I don't really know how it happened, except that maybe it's the way that I try to interact with, everybody on my team, everybody that I have the privilege of shooting, and maybe more of like a mood that's set before and during the shoot too.
I would say from an outside perspective, I think that's definitely valid. I mean, just from what I see like on social media and stuff, is like the Nomadic Madame experience, if you will. Like you get your makeup done in like this amazing way, and then you get these amazing photographs in your studio and stuff, and like for like someone that's wanting photos and stuff, like to see that and like I want that kind of thing, it's like a whole experience.
I will say it's like very specific to Detroit though. Like I don't think that I would be where I am if I was in a different city. I think I wouldn't have been able to be as free and creative and grassroots, and like it's just the Wild West out here in a lot of ways. And even though I did take that one class, I break a lot of rules.
Oh yeah.
I break a lot of rules in Photoshop that like any Photoshop teacher would probably kill me for. And
that's what makes a good photographer though, knowing the rules and breaking them with intent.
Well, now I do it, but I don't think I knew that to begin with. And I, because I didn't go to school for photography, I think it was kind of freeing. So
kind of like putting a Band-Aid on everything that other people would be like, when they go into your workflow, they're like, why is everything the way that it is? It's like, just don't touch it. This is how I'm doing it.
Oh yeah. No, I have a friend, my friend Greg has taught me a lot in Photoshop. Don't get me wrong. But every time he looks at a photo of mine, he's like, you're doing like, I don't even know where to begin. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I had to merge this layer because I couldn't build on top of it. So that's gone now.
Where are the smart objects?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out smart objects. Like
they're handy. It's basically a merge layer that you can go back on. So you can like click into it and like do all the stuff that you need to in that layer, Command S it, like save it, and then go back, and it's just like a merge layer, if you will.
So it's okay. So you press the little box.
That little like box in the corner. Yeah, you can double click that and it'll open up like a new page, if you will.
Yeah,
and
but it looks different, right? Than what's
like,
on your It's
not your whole image. It's just that layer, whatever's in that layer. and then you can go in. Oh, I can show you. It's better to show you.
No, it makes a lot of
Explain it,
sense because I've been doing a little bit more with topography, and all these videos are like convert it to a smart object. I'm like,
right, and like
I
the
don't know how to do that.
whole thing for a smart, the whole reasoning for a smart object is so that you can go back and edit it if you want. So it's not, you're not baking it in like with a merged layer. I've done that a handful of times too, where it's like you bake it in and then your time goes by and then you want to go back to it and it's just like, oh, it's baked in there. I gotta clone stamp or figure out another workaround.
yeah, you're like, how many times can I command Z?
Exactly.
Because I know I can set that, but what's my limit?
Right. No, I've been there. I definitely understand the struggle.
Yeah, I don't work a lot in Photoshop, to be honest. I mean, I do, but it's always something really small that I am like just navigating through.
Have you updated? Do you work in Lightroom at all, or are you pretty much just all Photoshop?
Oh, every photo starts in Lightroom and ends in Lightroom.
Okay,
but
yeah, likewise.
All my heavy lifting is done in Photoshop.
Have you updated Lightroom yet to like 22? I think it is.
Yeah, I think
22.
Actually, I don't think I updated Lightroom, but Photoshop automatically updated.
Right. Yeah, they have all those weird AI things, but the new Lightroom update actually has like so many. You can actually work with layers now in Lightroom.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's.
I haven't done it yet.
It's a little learning curve, I would say. I haven't really dove too deep into it, but yeah, there's layers, and you can like have your like gradient tool as well as like add it on, and it's like way more blend of Photoshop in there, which is I'm pretty excited about.
See, I think I would prefer if we could just use Camera Raw directly in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That for me, that would be just do that, Adobe, please.
I agree.
And then I wouldn't have to touch Lightroom.
Mm-hmm.
So
Just for our viewers, before we get into all this technical stuff
Yeah,
that I know
sorry.
you guys are going to go on forever for, Miles, I kind of want to hear more about like your theory and like everything that you represent, because there's this strong mentality behind like a lot of your photos, and I think that a lot of people feel comfortable around you, and you bring a lot of beauty out of people and kind of make them feel really good. And like, do you want to go into a little bit about that, about like the femme energy and empowerment and everything that you bring to the game?
I mean, hopefully I make people feel like confident around me. I think it's a core tenet of mine that literally everyone is beautiful, and they deserve to not only like hear that they're beautiful, but feel it and exude it. That's a lot harder sometimes than others, like for some people than others. Mm-hmm. Some people just come in to the studio and they just are living and breathing everything. And then some people, they don't know how to move their body. And then they don't know, they are a little stiffer. And then they're being in front of a camera is a whole nother level of like anxiety. I'm sure all of our creators out there know when the spotlight is on someone that isn't ready for it, they're like, you kind of freeze.
That big black hole of darkness that's a lens.
You're like, don't look at the camera.
Yeah. So it's, how do you have a conversation with someone while they're getting ready? How do you build them up also without it feeling contrived and forced and fake? And I think hopefully I just try to get to know people. It has been extremely hard since COVID though. Mm-hmm. I think that I personally am dealing with more social anxiety than I ever have.
We're all out of practice is what I've been realizing.
Yeah, I'm out of practice. I'm like out of practice, but I also don't want to be like, I have a history in sales, so I don't want to be like the salesman Miles that's like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And that's disingenuine to get you to this point. And then I just like don't know how to connect with people. Like, what am I supposed to say? What are you watching on Netflix? I'm so over that question. But it's not like, what are you doing tonight? Because no one's really doing anything. Mm-hmm. And then I think this is getting a little too depressing and away from your question. But
I mean, it's real. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I think, but in general and overall, I don't want to take pictures of people that are traditionally pretty in quotes. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take pictures of like girls that are peaking in high school. I want to take pictures of people that have stories. I want their stories to come out. I want them to know that they're beautiful. I want to hear their stories while we're like, I want to engage with them while we're shooting. I have learned and grown so much just since I became a photographer. Like, I thought I knew so much about what it meant to be femme and be like a woman, and I have learned how much I don't know. And so I think I also try to keep an open mind, and I also try to keep my shoots pretty spontaneous in a way. Like, there's certain things that I want planned out. Like, I want to have some poses in mind and some lighting in mind, but I need there to be like a freedom of, I need there to be like some freedom of like some agility to where if I see something I can like, can we try this? And then, and like chase down the rabbit holes, because if I try to perceive them before I'm actually shooting, I feel like that's when you miss the golden moments.
Okay.
And then
I definitely relate to that.
yeah, you have to, okay, so if creativity, if the creative process, like the most important part, in my opinion, is incubation. It's when you're like thinking about everything, but then when you're actually in like doing and like doing the creative thing, making the thing, if you don't give yourself room to explore within that, then it can be suffocating. And that's what I love about creating in general, is if you're in a moment where you're like, oh, let me go there, and then you almost prove something to yourself you didn't know you were trying to prove.
That's like with video and stuff, like having a shot list and all of that. Like, granted, shot lists and pre-production obviously are like some of the most important things, but having that like freedom within there where it's like you're freestyling, if you will, like within your shoots are like, I think really, really a good thing. And I think some of the best stuff comes out of it. So I definitely agree.
Yeah. And I think that what comes out of that too is learning to trust yourself, which is the most important thing. Like, you have to be able to trust yourself as a creator and not let the anxiety and expectations get in your way, because that's when I think you start to overthink something, and then it just is flat.
Yeah. I mean, what I hear you talking about is kind of going into something with like this preconceived notion of exactly what you want. But what happens is your mind gets trapped in this box, and then it's really hard to get outside of the box, you know? So like not even having that box there in the first place is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
I like that analogy.
For instance, I can just show you an example of kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
One of my best pieces and earliest pieces was, I call it Chewy, and it's like where this girl, how am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Her tits are covered in gum, and and I messed up. Like, I wanted to put like gum on boobs to like cover them, but use gum in a non-conventional way. I was like throwing it back to this 70s artist, Hannah Wilke, that like molded these vulvas into gum and like placed them all over her body. Just incredible woman. And then I should have chewed all the gum like a day before, because my saliva was breaking down the Prozaid, which is like adhesive for prosthetics. So it would have kept the gum on if the gum wasn't
dry,
wet. Yeah. And so it like all of a sudden this gum is like moving around the model, and I don't know, it's creating this whole thing. And she's like, was such a good model that she like worked with it. You know, she didn't work against it, and she wasn't pissed that it wasn't what she had signed up for. And granted, this is before I had a studio. This is like in my spare room in like the tiniest house. And she like pulls it, and I just kept shooting, and like it because it's a dance. Like, a photographer and a model, models aren't there to like suit my needs, and I'm not there to make them look beautiful. Like, it's a dance.
Collaboration.
Yeah, and it's like we make each other better, and we wouldn't exist without each other. And so anyway, I just kept shooting, and that shot ended up in Penthouse, Australia, and somehow, I don't know how they even found it, but
Wow.
That's sweet.
yeah, it's like a 2-page.
I think I've seen it. It's the yellow one, right?
Yeah.
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 That's cool. You have no idea how they found it either?
No, I got an email from Penthouse asking, like, saying they'd be interested in doing like a 12-page or like featuring 12 of my nudes. And I didn't even have that many nudes. I think they just found me on Instagram maybe through a hashtag, but not any of, like, I wasn't hashtagging or tagging them in any way. And then they just asked, I sent them, I like shot like 3 more people nude, like over the next 2 days before I sent them.
Trying to gain that portfolio. Real quick.
I was like, okay, well, let me just take more photos. And I sent them everything that I had, and they just were like, actually, we just want to buy this one photo for this one. Yeah. And then I never heard from them again, but they mailed it to me. They never mailed me a check, but they mailed me 2 copies. So,
well, so you're published, basically, is what you're getting at.
Well, yeah, I guess, but like also,
paying your rent in magazines doesn't really work.
Yeah, I wish. I think it's more too of like not knowing where something is going to end up, and like it not being a closed box is. But yeah, I've been published a few places.
What do you mean closed boxes?
What you were saying is like not having like one closed idea of what it's going to be and being pissed when it doesn't get there.
Yeah.
Because that happy accident led to you being published. I mean, who's to say that you wouldn't have gotten published otherwise? But I mean, because of that happy accident on you chewing gum day of, you got what you wanted out of it. So
no, something I never even expected.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just wanted the Dirty Show to hang it on their wall. You know, like, can you just put this in your show, please?
Another thing that I think that you do is really cool is how you have these. I've noticed that you're not really scared to ask for things, which is awesome, because like a lot of people, like sometimes me and Trey will have projects that we want to do and we're like, and then if you just ask for it, you know, you shall receive. And like, I've seen you reach out like, yo, I need somebody who's got like this old school Ford truck, or like who's got a location that looks kind of like this or that. And you have these visions that you have, and you kind of like attack them head on, which is like kind of how you.
Yeah, no, totally. Can I tell you about the coolest thing that happened at this last calendar, which is what you're talking about?
Actually, nobody who doesn't know Miles, should we talk about what Harem Calendar is?
Oh, yeah. So Harem Club, and I'm pretty sure it just had its last run.
Forever?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. What?
Yeah, we can talk more about that too.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is a calendar, a lunar calendar that has like, you know, all of your moons and your retrogrades, but it showcases femmes of all body types, shapes, colors, spectrums of femme in a way to kind of like break down the narrative that only this kind of female bodied person is sexy and deserves to be sexy, and to reclaim the idea of what a centerfold should be to us, the femmes.
You're revamping like the standard of beauty.
I guess you could say that, yeah. And like also like the standard of what it means to be sexy, and like why we should own it, and like the male gaze, if you will. But I want to like maybe take a step out of that and say like the patriarchal male gaze doesn't have a right to own it and commodify it and make money on it. Not to say there isn't good art out there that I do consume. But, you know, especially from the past. But hey, if there's any time to change it, it's now. I think I am really, really lucky that if I was born 10 years earlier, 10 years later, I'd be too late, or I'd be too early. So I'm just kind of here. I mean, I'm still kind of a late bloomer. Like I'm in my 30s now. So.
Yeah.
But still, you're in right place, right time, like you were saying, in Detroit and stuff. Like, I mean, your work definitely screams Detroit, and like that whole kind of edgy feel that Detroit kind of personifies. But yeah, I mean, right place, right time.
No, and I love asking for stuff, because sometimes I get stuff like sometimes people offer me stuff I didn't know that I wanted to work with. Like, no, I don't have and I also like have crazy ideas. Like, you know, if you know anywhere I can get a camel, you guys, in Michigan, I want to do a shoot with a camel so bad.
I got one back in my apartment. I can.
That poor camel. But I think that's something I'd have to find like in Arizona. and
to touch on. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, exotic animal rental is
It's fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked up one, and just very weird experience. Like, I mean, you're probably running into like Joe Exotics and stuff if you're going to be renting those. But and they have to like sedate the animal. At least when we were trying to get like a, what was it?
Tigers.
Tiger. Yeah.
Why were you trying to get a tiger?
Rapper music videos.
Weird requests from rappers. But yeah, no, they were like, yeah, we have to sedate the animal. You have to pay for the sedation, all this stuff. And we're like,
and then I started looking into the type
not.
of chemicals that they use to sedate these animals. And this is even before Tiger King came out. And I was like, wait, this is an inhumane practice. And I don't really fuck with this. I don't really want, even if we have the money for it, I don't feel comfortable like sedating a tiger, caging it, driving it 2 hours to location, sedating it again.
Right.
You know, and then it's just like.
Bad news.
I'm not
Camel,
really
I feel
about
like you could find some good people, though. That
Well,
might
I
be-
feel like a camel is closer to like an alpaca. Like,
Well, camels are, they're, what do they call them? They fall in line. They're like mule animals, like they're farm animals, you know, like they're consensual, like animals that like, you know.
I mean, it's fine. I'm going to go to Morocco to shoot with a camel if I have to.
That'll be badass.
But tigers, they just want to eat stuff. So they're definitely pumping them full of chemicals. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Do you find sometimes it's hard to align your ethics with your industry?
Yes.
Yeah. So
All
this
the
is
time.
actually totally. And there have been times where rappers will talk and like,
I mean, we turn down rappers all the time just because their videos are so outlandish or like
misogynistic.
questionable, misogynistic, like, or just like outright illegal.
Yeah. and it's just, it's like really hard to talk to a rapper about like, yo, I don't want to do that because that's like super bad. Like you're basically talking about shooting some sort of like softcore porn. And, you know, we don't really want to do that.
But like softcore porn in like the worst way possible. Like just
Yeah.
Softcore porn where like the female doesn't have any consent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
much.
Or is at least being portrayed in a way they don't have consent, so glorifying that.
And the man is in power, and like there's like drug use and fentanyl and like heroin, and people want to talk about like all that shit. And I'm like, dude, I don't. The last podcast we just talked about that kind of stuff. If you listen to it, you'll understand. I don't fuck with that. I'm not gonna back that.
It's okay to talk about that stuff in a narrative that makes people think about it. I think about this a lot in movies.
Mm-hmm.
But
there's an
Like
artful,
what-
tasteful way to do something.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
what
yeah.
Tarantino does, kind of. Except for he's kind of crazy.
Like
too,
how when he
but-
spits on Uma Thurman. Is that what you're talking about? To like,
I don't know about all that. That sounds bad.
I mean, he's definitely questionable, but he was pushing the envelope with just like coming out of the 80s and stuff with the whole thing. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that. But I still think for our viewers, we're kind of robbing them of some vital information and kind of like, I want to put Miles on more of a pedestal than I've been doing.
no, thank you so much for continuing to drive us back to me.
Yeah.
I think I do a great job of like trying to deflect.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for. So like for people who don't know, like Harem Club was a super cool, badass thing where it's like the calendars are beautiful. You have these beautiful people and like beautiful set design, whether it's like furs or like you build like, you know,
Definitely a 70s aesthetic to your work.
Everything in Harem Club is hopefully intentional. Like it really is. I cast it, I produce it, I make sure that all the first year I didn't have makeup. The first year it started because I was like in a meditation and I got this idea in a meditation. I was like, you're going to do a 13-month lunar calendar. They're going to be all topless and you're going to shoot it in a month and a half. And I was like, cool, let's go. And it was crazy what kind of locations I was able to get. And there like I said, there was like, I didn't provide any wardrobe and I didn't do any makeup, but it was so ethereal and like romantic. And then there was so much wrong with that calendar too. Like the paper I printed it on, like it was like thinner, like the front parts of it were laminated and hard and thick. And then all the insides were so thin that they curved over. And like that was also like such a learning moment for me when it comes to looking at myself as an artist that's not just like printing for or making art for Instagram, which you don't have to worry about like what your colors are going to print as, and you don't have to worry about how things are going to live. Like the more and more I work with physical works, the more and more it deepens my actual practice of photography. But I think that art belongs not just in a physical, like, or not just in a screen that you're going to pass. That's why I'm so excited to see some of your landscapes today. I'm hoping they're downstairs.
There's one hanging on the wall, but
Yeah.
that was another thing too with me. Like that one was just like a prototype that I kept. But I know now when I go and reprint it again, I got to boost some contrast here, bring out the blues here a little bit more, and some other stuff like that too.
I mean, that's like one thing anyone who shoots photos, like I strongly recommend, and I'm sure both you guys can too, like try printing your photos, because it is such a different learning curve on like how you have to adjust your photo and to compensate for whatever printer paper that you're using, whether it's matte or glossy. Like all those things play into effect on like your edit of your photo too. So
Yeah, it's really, and like what you see on your screen is not what will always be printed out based on like your
100%, yeah.
CMYK or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it kept growing, and I kept, and like every year that I did a casting, I just, these beautiful people kept coming, and I'm like, you want me to take your photo? Like, what an honor that is. And it's still like the best thing I've ever done, probably ever will do, because I got to work with people in Detroit that had never had their photo taken before. They had never been able, they haven't been able to talk to their family about their, like being non-binary, or they never saw themselves so beautiful because they didn't fit into this like standard, like sample size, or they, I mean, and I learned what it was to be, I didn't learn personally what it is to be non-binary, but I like grew to understand the term in the second calendar when one of the models was non-binary, but really embodied their femme side. And I had to ask, like, I need you to talk to me more about this, because I it's important for this project, and it's important for me to understand. And this would have been like 3 years ago. And I had such a misguided understanding of what it was based on the media, and you know, it wasn't necessarily their job to teach me, but they were happy to do it. And shit, that was so cool. Like, it's just like, I don't think that I am always the person that knows everything, but I am someone that is not afraid to fail. And I am someone that wants to do as much with what talent I have as possible. So I think Harem Club was a great way for me to try to leverage what I had with a community that I respect and get it into, make something special for everyone. I wanted to make a calendar that little girls, and this is going to sound so fucking backwards because it's topless and sometimes fully nude, but that like little girls or little like trans girls or little femme boys like could look at and see people and go, oh, they're hot, and that's what my body looks like. I'm hot. Like, if you can put people, if you can showcase people the way we have seen like big boobed blondes showcase their whole life, then like they will maybe see how beautiful they are, and other people will see it and then themselves feel beautiful. So that was the goal.
That's powerful. That's really cool.
So,
And it's so two things. The first thing is what you said about, you know, learning and not being afraid to fail. Like, one of my least favorite qualities in people is when somebody will say something along the lines of like, oh, I know this, or like, you can't convince me otherwise, or this or that. And it's like, if I get into a debate, or if I'm like in a conversation with somebody that has like a different view than mine, I want them to change my mind, because at that point I can take a step back and be like, oh, I was wrong, and I can learn this. So like, I learned something new today. And I think one of the reasons why like I love that so much is because growing up I was always fucking up, and like I was so used to being like, oh, you're doing this wrong. And it's like, okay, now I can do it better and better myself in another way. And I just think that's kind of important and kind of cool what you were talking about. But the second thing is how like it's very interesting that you're kind of taking this role that I don't want to say has been done, but like other people have like tried to do it and have like been in the same vein. And I'm talking specifically about like, you know, like Hugh Hefner or like Playboy or other things like that. But it was all controlled by a man, and it was like for men, and it was for men's like sexual gratification, to where like your spin on this whole entire thing is like, it's not necessarily for that. It's about like the person who's being photographed to like feel beautiful in their own skin, depending on if it's inside the standard of beauty or not, especially nowadays when we get into such realms of like sexuality and gender and other things like that. And I think that's like kind of badass that you're doing that.
I also think those two things kind of go together in like not being afraid of your sexuality too. And I think the more that we can do that and come out of our shells and be more explorative sexually, the more we can be less afraid of it and then move on to other things. You know what I mean? So I think so many people get tied down, or their life is so affected by their sexuality or the sexuality of their child, or
all stuff that's supposed to be private. Yeah, nobody should be worrying about, you know, like don't worry about what I'm into, you know, but
don't worry about what I'm into. Just make sure that you feel like I'm being safe with humans, and like talk to me about what it means to be what consent means, like all these things that
respect
we should be focusing on.
Or should just be like common like knowledge and decency, like you know, like it should just be a thing where it's
but power comes into it, I guess. And so what I'm talking about is like, let's give the power back to the people actually in these bodies, because that's who deserves it. And I'm not even like, I'm just like a conduit for that. It's not always necessarily my story that I'm sharing. So,
and I think you do a good job with that too, because with your calendars, you have like your calendar release party every year. So that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. Have you been to one?
Yeah.
You went to the first one?
2.
Oh, which one did you?
The one in your studio.
Last year?
Yep.
Yeah. That was in my studio this year too. But
okay.
I don't really remember that one. Not because I was drunk or anything, but because it went by so fast, and I almost didn't do another release party after that one.
Your head's swimming all night. You have so many people coming up to you, praising you and praising the models. And like, I mean, when I go in, because I went to the first one at Willis, and I was like, that was crazy. This is kind of nuts. Like, this is a classy joint with some classy people doing some classy shit. And then I go to your second one, and it was the same vibe and everything, but it was also more of a community event where like all the models are there, family is there, like there's drinks being served and everything. It was just like, my head was kind of spinning with everything that was going on. I can't imagine you being the host of the situation.
Yeah, and I didn't have a ton of help. Like, I didn't think, and it was COVID, and I didn't think like many people were. I always think no one's gonna come. So, yeah.
Well, it was vaccinated and masked up and everything, and all the windows were open and all that stuff.
Oh
too.
yeah, vaccines weren't out yet. Everyone wore a mask. I was so nervous about someone getting COVID at that event. I did contact tracing sheets. Everyone got their temperature checked, but like, I also thought that people deserved to celebrate everything that we had created. So, and like talking about Harem Club, I would be so sad if I didn't talk about Ghost Artistry, who is the makeup artist that I rely so heavily on for fucking everything. She's my best friend. She is like, we joke around about like having the same brain because we're like always inside each other's heads creatively, and we have grown so much together. So I think a lot of times when people are like praising my style or thinking about me, they're like, actually should be maybe praising Ghost too. Cause I'm like, hey, I have this idea. You have to figure out how to do it. So
how does that method kind of work? Like if you have, let's say, this shoot in mind or this specific like makeup in mind, like where does that, like, I mean, I'm sure it's a collaborative process between you guys, but like, are you guys figuring out what the makeup's going to look like even before the shoot and everything, and have that all like?
It really depends. Every project is so different.
Yeah.
Like one thing that Ghost did that still blows me away was she took a heart-shaped face, I remember that. Okay, so like in beauty, you have like oval faces, square faces, heart-shaped, and something else, I'm sure. circle faces. I don't know. That doesn't sound right. And these are like really old school ways of looking at it, like Estee Lauder in the 30s, prescriptives, like you're a summer, you're a winter. And
Whoa, I never thought of it like that.
yeah, like based on your undertones, hair color, and eye color. This is like from the 60s way of looking at beauty and makeup, mostly because they were trying to sell you on something.
Yeah.
But hey, it's still, a lot of it does stand true. And so she wanted to make a heart rhinestone, someone's heart-shaped face, and all rhinestones in the shape of a heart. And then she did a circle, and then she did a star. And honestly, I've never done less. She did. It's good because I couldn't do much as a photographer that wouldn't take away from what she had just created. I guess I did some extended exposures, and I, knew what I was doing with my filters, and but it didn't take any retouching because this face was covered in.
It was perfect.
Yeah, it was just covered in rhinestones, and it took Ghost like 3 hours each face, and she had an assistant.
Wow.
So it was crazy, and that was her idea.
That went down.
I think so.
Okay, keep going.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we so that was hers, and then something that recently that I just did was actually with a hairstylist, Katie, who I've been working a little bit more with, and I was like, hey, can you do something kind of like this long ponytail with these balls in the center? And I'd sent her kind of a reference picture, and what she came in with was so over the top, long and beautiful, and like so fun that the heat was off in my studio because the landlord was, I don't know, not fixing something.
Being a landlord.
Yeah. And and when she came in, we were so cold. And the minute the hair got in, and it was like heavy, we had to like carry it around like a bridal veil. Like just that you see everyone on set light up. We were throwing things. I don't know. We're just like, it's like our hearts start to like come in sync. So
the energy starts to really pick up and synchronize.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. And like, that was something I was like, hey, can you do something like this? I cannot micromanage any creative because I would hate to be a creative that was micromanaged. So I guess to answer your original question, I like to give these like jumping off points, kind of set a mood. I like there to be, I want everyone to do their job. I don't want to worry that someone's going to fuck up and that I'm going to have to do some heavier lifting, either in Photoshop or like in the actual shooting. And then, and granted, sometimes stuff like that happens that's not someone's fault. And then I like there to be room for spontaneity.
Happy accidents.
So it takes a village, but the village has no box.
Yeah. We have no perimeter, no fence.
Can you put one of those cards that are on the Fuji lens cap right there in the Fuji? I think those are full.
Okay.
Don't format it though.
I won't.
Don't you dare.
1 second.
Don't format it. All the photos I just took in Florida.
Where did you go in Florida?
Clearwater.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
where my mom and my stepdad got married.
Oh, nice. Like Clearwater Beach.
Yeah,
Really? Mm-hmm. Nice.
I think so. You say that like it's not pretty.
I mean, it's beautiful down there. It's just very touristy. Like Clearwater Beach is like
Okay,
Hulk Hogan store and all that stuff.
there was like a bridge. I wasn't there. It was just the two of them. There was like a bridge. They went over a bridge. They got married. But they say Clearwater.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know it that well, so
Yeah.
I just know like the little piece. My girlfriend is from there originally, so we were.
She's from the Hulk Hogan store.
Yeah, born right in there. She popped right out. Hey, brother.
A secret of mine that I know is never going to happen, but I'll say it on this pod. I would love to start like a female wrestling, like just like fun league, because it looks like so much fun and so much like physical, like, like mostly when I watch Glow. So maybe I'm just a little in love with Allison Brie, but
I don't know what Glow is. What is it?
it's a Netflix show that's all about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. It's based on a true like story, but it's like heavily fictionalized. Mark Maron's in it. He's incredible.
Okay.
But it's just a bunch of sexy ladies.
You should do it. That should be a shoot of yours or like a series, you know? Some,
Yo,
like,
that would actually be
WrestleMania,
sick.
Like, girls.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty badass.
Let me just pop something up on my story, like who's got a wrestling ring, and we'll like this
Lucha
is
Libre kind of vibe to it too.
Well, it would not.
Well, no, that's like
yeah,
completely different.
But my roommate Willa had just emceed at a luchador match on Halloween.
Really?
Wow.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was so cool. I wasn't there. I was in Mexico, but it sounded like a blast.
I went to in Colorado a couple years ago with Matt Wilkin. Actually, we went to this like Lucha Libre wrestling show / comedy show. So like the ref and everything was a comedy or like was a comedian and just like ripping the two wrestlers apart like the entire time. It was actually very funny. It's very Matt Wilkin thing to do, but
the whole culture of wrestling is very interesting.
I wrestled in middle school, and then I started wrestling in high school, but then I quit because I was like, fuck sports. But it was really interesting because it's like this very masculine thing, but then you take a lot of like, you know, toxic masculinity from prepubescent boys and put them in leotards, and then like they're like, wait, this is what wrestling is? And everybody's like, get on the ground and I'm going to mount you now and we're going to do the whole thing. And then there's just like this weird, masculine like thing about it.
But is that wrestling different than like what we're talking about right now? Because what we're talking about is kind of scripted and like melodrama in a way, or almost vaudevillian.
harder hits and
and what you're talking about is actual competition.
It's like the martial art style of American wrestling.
Which
was cool, but the stuff you guys are talking about is way cooler.
I mean, I think they are both equally
they're
fun.
in their own league.
Yeah.
So you were talking about before we went on this whole digression, this green truck, this Ford.
No, I wasn't.
Well, I brought it up, but then you said you had a story about it, right?
Yeah, as I know what you're talking about, I think. But my story is that I walked by an empty store in Detroit. It was like all glass, and on the inside, like you could tell like the windows were just replaced. And on the inside, it was just a dirt floor. And there was like greens like popping out of the floor, like weeds and stuff. And then there was a bunch of 2x4s and exposed brick. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this is so beautiful. I need to shoot in here. And because it was an unreal location, and also something that I could tell was like very temporary. Like someone was working on this, and the window would be short. So I took a photo of it. The next day on my Instagram, I posted, who knows who owns this building. And these are the cross streets.
Like shot in the dark, basically.
Yeah. And like, because let's see, the people that follow me on Instagram, they're not business owners. They're not like
Got
lawyers.
The biggest real estate agent following in the Detroit.
Yeah, God. But I posted that, and then my friend Niambura, you guys might know her as Problematic Black Hottie. Her partner, Jeremy, saw it, and he sent me within an hour had sent me a message like, hey, I know a little bit about like a private detecting. Is that the verb? And like my father was one, and I hope I'm not giving out too much information about him, but he within like no time had sent me a Metro Times article about what kind of restaurant it was going to be. He found the architect, he found who owned it, and he's like, the best, if I were you, I would email the architect, because I can't find like email addresses for these other humans. They'll probably be able to get you in touch with a manager. I emailed that guy, the architect. The architect emailed it, forwarded it to whoever was the manager, and then the manager messaged me back and was like, yeah, well, you need to shoot soon. It's for what? It's for a topless calendar. Cool. That sounds great. We're going to start doing more construction on it in 3 weeks. Can you get in before then? And
sign a couple liability papers.
I didn't do anything. No,
Wow.
I thought he was going to meet us at the location when the location when it was time to get to the location, you know, I scheduled the shoot for like a week and a half or 2 weeks ahead of time when it worked out for everybody's schedules. He wasn't even there. He just gave me the code to the lockbox. We had free reign. I sent him some videos after, and then they're like, "Oh, do you do other kinds of photography? I also work with this lawyer's office, and sometimes they need pictures of scars and stuff." And like, let's be real, one picture of a scar is going to pay more than like anything I've done. Like for a law office, it's going to pay better than anything I've done all year. So then I got a job out of it.
Fuck
so,
yeah. It's literally
stars
like
align.
looking through a window of opportunity, you know?
Yeah, kind of.
Passing by on the street and
I just was like inspired by this place.
I mean, the photos you got from it, I know exactly what you're talking about. They're amazing.
Yeah,
like,
but that
from the model, from the location, from the makeup, like it's
and then Kelsey did this crazy thing on her head, which we had talked about. I don't know. That is one of those things that, like, I saw it, and it's like I see golds and blacks and something interesting with the like yarn on the head. So.
One point I want to touch on, just with the calendars and stuff before we stray too far away from that, is like just how, like, with photography and stuff, everything's so like temporary and like there and then gone, like the next second with social media and stuff. But like with your calendar and stuff, I think that's so cool, like with an actual tangible piece of art in that sense, where like you're seeing that time and time again, and you really get to like live with your art in a sense. And that's like one thing that I definitely like think about a lot with my photography, is just like how like disposable in a sense like social media makes our art and our field, and it's just like really nice to have that like tangible piece as opposed to like a print as well too. It's
cool. Print your work. All the photographers out there, print your models, print your work, hang your photos on your walls, because you'll get to see how much you've grown and how much you've changed. That's the cool thing looking at the calendar, like just on like the printing process itself. God, my printer has worked so hard for me and knows me very well. And I am not like even a percentage of his business. So let's see. Like now they're all perforated so you can like keep the pictures.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're like on this really nice cardstock. But I've gotten to see, like, I can see my growth between the 4 calendars, and that's really nice. But then, you know, and a lot of people treat their Instagrams in this way, like they archive stuff that they don't want out there, stuff that they don't think is any good. My Instagram goes all the way back to like my first post, and it would have been 2013 when I got Instagram, or maybe like the end of 2012. And I get to see photos before I was even a photographer with like the original Instagram filters.
Oh yeah.
Like Valencia. And I don't remember the other ones. But one of my biggest regrets was when I deleted my MySpace when I was 18. And then like 5 years later, I wanted to go back to it and see what it looked like, because it's a time capsule, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the servers at MySpace went down, so no one has a MySpace anymore. But
wow, I didn't know that.
I mean, who knows if they went back up, but I'm pretty sure like running the servers for MySpace, a program no one was using, like got really expensive for what they didn't have any advertising. Tom, bless you.
He pieced out.
Way better than Mark, dude. Tom was actually our good friend.
Yeah.
You know,
your first one.
Yeah.
Your first friend.
Your first friend.
And he wasn't like doing all that sketchy stuff with all your stuff like Mark is doing.
Oh yeah, for the metaverse.
Yeah.
Cool. Are y'all ready for the next level of evolution? Or?
For our screen times to go from 50% a day to 90% a day?
Nope. I'm good.
How many hours a day do you spend on your phones?
Like 3 hours.
My screen time for specific apps are set to 3 hours. But
we talked about this actually in the other podcast. What I did recently is I have limits set. So like I have a 15-minute limit on like my social medias. Granted, you can like change it and like, or not change it, but ignore it and it'll like open it back up. But like having that extra wall of like
that reminder.
Yeah. Like, hey, should you really scroll right now, you piece of shit? So
I'm so not a tech person. I don't even know how to set those up. I have a friend that has her whole iPhone is pink. All the apps are pink.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how to do that.
There's
There's a way.
I know there is. I'm like, is it that I don't have the time or that I'm just old?
I think it's definitely a Googling process. Like no one's just going into their settings and doing it. They're like, I want to do that. So they start watching the YouTube videos and stuff. But my screen time goes up and down depending on like what work we're doing, because when we're like in a production or something like that, you know, it's nothing but emails and phone calls. So
Yeah. And your phone's in your pocket.
and I need it to do those things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice, but it's also super toxic because it's like, when do I clock out? You know?
Oh, yeah.
The hard part for me is when people see that I'm online and they've sent me a message like through Instagram or a text message and I haven't responded to them, but then I've made a post or I've did something on my story.
You feel that guilt.
Yeah, or like people get mad and it's like, Instagram is my business, but just because you're reaching out to me doesn't mean that you deserve my instant attention at this time.
Dude, I literally say that same shit. It's like, just because I have this in my pocket doesn't mean that you get free space in my brain on like your time and your decision. You know what I mean?
That's a big thing that I feel like not very many people obviously realize on like what you're saying, like that free space on just like, I can talk to John Downing when I want right now, like whenever, you know.
And if he doesn't pick up, then he's a dick. And it's like, dude, I'm busy.
Which like that whole like way of thinking has like evolved like just in the past like 10, 15 years, if that.
Not
Just,
even.
like,
I
not
think
even,
it's
like,
really like a 3-4 year thing.
Yeah.
And corporate loves it. They'll like send you emails and stuff like that. And they'll be like, why aren't you emailing me back at 9 p.m. so we can make sure that we're ready to talk at 7 a.m. And it's like, because I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And also, like, just while we're on this, I don't think models always understand my process because they don't, or even photographers. Like, I spend a lot of time on my photos, and it isn't just like, oh, we took photos and you're going to get them back the next day. Like, please don't ask me for photos in 2 days, because there's a long pipeline of people in front of you, honestly. And, if you want your photos to be good, let me spend time with them. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to get across to some people. Like there's some photographers that are great photographers that don't retouch. I don't know if it's because they don't know how and they don't want to learn, or they like, I couldn't begin to tell you. I do. I do all of my coloring by hand. I'm always learning.
It's like, do you want it done fast or you want it done right?
Yeah. So hey,
I mean, treating like a photo in a sense, like a drawing or an art piece, and that like you don't draw like the Mona Lisa in an hour and turn it around to the client again, you know?
No.
Like it's really spending your time, like, I mean, the more you live with that image, that specific image in whatever editing software, I feel like you can just grow that image and like just really fine tune it a lot more than just like slapping the preset on it and going about your day.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I just sit there and look at it for a long time before I touch anything.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't even realize this too, but it's the same thing with video. You'll crank out an edit and you'll be like, this is great. I've been in front of it too long. Close it, come back the next day with a fresh set of eyes when your mind's outside of that box again, and you can actually like
realize all the mistakes that you just did.
Well, you can reshape things and you can do things
totally.
that are, you have to do. It's like part of the whole creative process.
Yeah.
And if some people are kind of trying to push that, it's like you can't really push creativity.
No.
So.
But I get it. You showed up and did your job too. Mm-hmm. But like in this instant world, I think it's harder to understand things that take time.
Yeah, definitely.
Do live in an instant world.
Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit.
What other questions you got? Give me. I'm on fire.
Well, so there was something that was right on the tip of my tongue when you were talking about the last thing.
Just screen time.
It wasn't screen
corporate
time.
Being
not corporate. What did you said something? Oh, retouching. Yeah. So how do we like with the whole toxicity of like celebrities and their standards of beauty and like Vogue or certain magazines that like, oh, they're photoshopping out like, scars or stretch marks or like enlarging lips or like pupils and other things like that. Like where's the moral line? And then also like what is your standpoint on all that stuff?
Oh man.
There's like an artistic and a moral line. Like I feel like there's two different.
It depends on the photo, I will say. Mm-hmm. Like depends on the angle. I always ask, and it depends on what it's for. I always ask people if they want their scars retouched out or not.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, hey, you want this bruise? Do you want me to just like patch tool this bruise out? Okay, cool. Cause I thought so, but I wanted to make sure. If it's distracting,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it out. I always take pimples out. Those are temporary. You don't want those on your face, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like enlarging an eye, like sometimes you can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just like sharpening a jaw a little bit. Like, is that, if you can't tell, does it make it wrong? I don't know. If I have shot something that's for a beauty editorial, I'm probably going to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
If I am doing something that is supposed to be more raw and organic and more of a representation of like you, I won't. I rarely, first of all, I rarely do those things. I exclusively do them when asked, or when, not retouching in general. Like there's a smoothness of the skin that I think is pretty representational of my style.
Frequency separation and all that jazz.
Yeah, I frequency separate, I dodge, I burn, I do a bunch of weird stuff. And
sounds like just like ingredients in this cauldron.
yeah, pretty much. And then but like when we're talking about like enlarging eyes, I'll do it for more of like these beauty campaign things that I've, worked on. But I so badly want to do something really, really alien where I take a model and I just fuck with their face and liquefy. And because I have an idea of what I want it to look like. And I think that would be really fucking cool, honestly. But that's something where I would never just like take a photo and do it. I would be like, hey, model Jane, I really want to experiment with this. You're not going to look like yourself and you're going to look pretty fucked up. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be pretty, right? So that's something I would do with consent.
Yeah, just having the understanding of all parties kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of this kind of stuff that I'm talking about come out of Russia. So,
That's cool.
Jesus Christ, this camera keeps going down, bro.
Yeah,
It
it's
went
my
down
beauty.
Again. It needs that other card. It's just because I didn't format them. So
Technical difficulties, everybody. We were just talking about retouching and all that other stuff. So, to be honest, Miles, I've been a fan of your photography for a super, super long time. And like, honestly, I was kind of obsessed with it for a little bit because I was like, I want to do that. Because like, there's that whole entire like 70s aesthetic that's just badass. And like a lot of people, you don't see it a lot nowadays. And everybody loves it. I mean, that's why people go back to shooting on film and doing this and that. But, just like orange tones and just like different pastels and things like that you get into. And I once had reached out to Jessica Brusher and I was like, yo, I kind of want to do something with like a model and I don't really have experience with that.
She went to WCC, right?
Yep.
Okay, I know who she is.
Yeah, and I know her pretty well. Like, we're good friends. So she was like, this is totally something I'm comfortable with. And I was like, just to let you know, like, have no idea what I'm doing. And she's like, it's fine. Let's have some fun and let's do it.
Yeah.
And then I did it, and like we had different backdrops, different makeup styles. My friend Kyla came in and did it and everything like that. And then it only took one shoot for me to be like, dude, this is way over my head. And it was not only with, like you said, working with the model, that dance, the posing, and just like the comfortability of being with somebody and kind of knowing what you're going for. And then I got into the retouching phase, and I was like deep in Photoshop and in YouTube tutorials, and I was like, dude, this is so much like editorial beauty, like all this other stuff and layers in Photoshop. And I was like, this is way more work than I realized. So when I see what you're doing, it's like I don't think a lot of people completely understand like how much goes into it.
Oh yeah, no one gets it. Even like sometimes like the makeup and hair people that I work with, I'm like, no, it's not. I just don't. And and the thing is, I love it. I love editing. It is so fun for me. I love working with colors, and my style is almost like transitioned away from that like vintage style into something kind of a little bit more, I think, cerebral and
poppy.
Yeah, a little bit.
I've noticed that in your work, kind of that shift into
and
stronger tones.
It's not because I don't like the vintage stuff. I think I just am continuing to try new things. I just can't stay put in one place. If I'm not learning something, I'm like, oh, okay, I figured this out. I also started to get away from nudity because I didn't want to be known for just shooting nudes, and I wanted to be taken more seriously. So I think that had a big part of me. And like for me, I think that nudity does go a little bit more vintage. And then when I'm shooting more editorial, it does go a little bit more poppy. But anyway, what I was saying was, yeah, no one gets it except, but I love it. And, you know, sometimes I overdo it and I have to like rein myself back in.
You think?
Oh, well,
I think every artist goes through that. I mean, the thing of like stepping back for a day or something and then revisiting it and being like, oh, like, maybe I shouldn't like crank that saturation like that or whatever that may be. I think there's
like, I'll be so deep in the skin and making it so perfect that I'll like come out and I'll be like, oh, well, this is too much. And then I'll just, what's nice about that though is I can just like turn the opacity down and it blends it really nice. And then what else did you say? No, it's a lot of work in terms of getting it all together, but it is so much fun for me. Like seeing everything come together is part of the fun. And I think that's why I can continue to do it. When we're on the road and I'm alone in these beautiful places and I don't have a model to take photos of besides maybe Connery, who is, of course, the best model. But like, you know what I mean? Like a woman that I can put a dress on and we can just like go running in the canyons. Who am I?
Frolicking through the fields.
Yeah, you know,
Stuff.
and like getting weird and like it's almost depressing. So
when you don't have that someone to run around and take pictures
yeah,
with.
like
Yeah.
I love taking photos of landscapes, but I see visually like visions. I like.
Like, oh, this model right here, like
Yeah, and this like and I think something that I have done that has made me successful is I see those visions and then I set to make them happen. One thing I struggle with is learning what visions to chase and what ones not to. So I'm trying to get better at being like, okay, this is an idea, write it down, think about it.
I mean, that's like one of the most valuable things as a photographer, creative in general, is just finding your style. And I can say that you've obviously found that. I mean, you said like, I like taking landscapes and stuff, but I mean, your thing is those like amazing portraits, you know?
But I think it's because I get to interact with people and people are at the heart of my work. They're like,
yeah, it's more than just the photos, you know. It's
Yeah,
that
it's like-
experience with the human interaction and stuff, as
It's-
opposed to you
yeah.
won't get that with the mountains out in the
I
Grand
mean,
Canyon.
you kind of do, but like,
It's different.
it's not, yeah.
Every time I see BTS that you upload from like someone's cell phone or something like that on your story, I'm like, damn, it looks like they're having a fucking blast.
Oh man, sometimes BTS hits harder than the actual photos, and that makes me so sad.
Because it's a moment, you know?
Yeah, I'm
Or
like,
just the weird thing that like a selfie will always hit harder than like any of your work.
yeah, my self portraits tend to do a lot better than some other things that I do,
It's a
but
weird thing.
you know, I try not to take boring self portraits too. So I get so frustrated. I have like written this out on my story to post on Instagram and not posted it because I'm like, this is too aggressive. But
I've done that.
like, and I've done that so many times, but I see so many good photographers in Detroit taking the most basic ass photos of themselves over and over again. And I just want to make them take like a second to think about why that self-portrait is important to that. Like you can push yourself. If you can't get weird with yourself and be vulnerable in that space with yourself, like that's what I want to see from photographers and creatives.
Those self-portraits you did when you were in that green piece, like lingerie piece with your hair, that was all done out?
Oh, I don't remember those.
You don't?
Green
With
piece
the-
of lingerie.
With the dildo?
Yeah, with the dildo.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't posted those.
Those are fucking awesome.
Yeah, I can't post those because of Instagram censorship, and I'm too afraid to like.
Lose
Get,
everything
like,
that you've
destroyed.
built.
Yeah, and
You're
so
definitely inspiring me to take some weird self-portraits when I get home.
please do.
I'm serious, in all seriousness. I mean, like,
yeah.
people will probably never see them, but I mean, it's shit.
But you will. You better send them to me.
I mean, yeah, of course.
I have been starting to make self-portraits into a healthier habit, but it is definitely where I go to be alone, have like a form of self-reflection, and there's a lot of whiskey and cigarettes involved usually.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
Totally.
think
So
the beauty of having a studio too.
yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Are you still in your studio space?
Yeah, I'm looking for a new one. I probably have about 6 more months there before they rent it out to like the way the building is. It might be. I have like one little suite, in that big building, and I've been there alone for so long. And someone else bought it out, and now they're redoing it. And I think someone is interested in renting out both sides of the building, the whole thing. So, I'm gonna need to find something else. But then I went to. I'm just gonna tell you guys an honest story. The other day, I heard about a place in Hamtramck, which is ideally where a studio would be for me because that's where I live. KO Gallery is no longer, and they're going to be renting out that space, and it's really narrow. So honestly, it wouldn't be ideal for me because if I wanted to shoot long ways, I would have to cover the only door to the back room with a backdrop. Like it's great for an art gallery, or like maybe a small vintage store or something. But the owner, when I just went to see what it looked like through the windows, and the owner was there redoing some stuff, and I chatted with him for a bit. And then he called me and was like, asking me who he was like kind of negotiating with price. He's like, yeah, because I'd rather rent it out to you, a photographer, like an artist or something, than those people. And I was like, oh. He said those people 3 times before I finally was like, I just need to know who are those people. And he's like, oh,
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, he's like, the Middle Eastern people.
Oh.
And I was just like, cool.
You're like the backbone of the fucking community.
Yeah, like, we're in Hamtramck, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. Thanks for telling me not to give you my money.
Yeah.
Also, and then I was starting to think like, well, what if I did sign a lease? And then like, how could I fuck him over even more by doing more community outreach
There
from
you
that
go.
place?
Yeah.
Like, it just, so I
That's
don't,
messed up.
it's really hard
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
to find a cool place that is like,
affordable and
yeah, that you feel good about.
Because I mean, the social responsibility of having like where to ethically put your money, like the power of your dollar.
Yeah.
That's important.
Definitely.
And I've seen you talk about that with women's beauty products too.
Oh yeah. Like, or even just like Madonna the other day.
What'd you say?
She made a post about she partnered with V Magazine and some photographer that I'm not sure about. I'd have to look at. I mean, he's a great photographer, don't get me wrong. Also, Madonna, I love you and I'm not against plastic surgery, but what the fuck did you do to your face? And why don't you look like yourself anymore at all? And
Madonna just shouts out because I know you are watching this right now.
yeah. She made a post about how she was so proud of this it's like a 3-part huge magazine. It comes in an acrylic or a lucite box, and how it was this big project, and like people were sleeping on couches and there was practically no funding. And I'm like, okay,
You're Madonna.
So I know that you are like the spotlight of this, but like you are who makes it. Literally.
A bunch of money.
And you're not paying these people. You're saying these people worked for next to nothing and were sleeping on couches to create literally a magazine to put you on a pedestal. And that magazine is selling that box for $300.
It's ridiculous.
And it's all you. It's just you. So
Where was the disconnect?
Yeah, and
Someone-
fuck off.
Yeah, right.
Getting paid in those good old exposure bucks.
Yeah, that doesn't work for anybody ever.
So you know what kind of blows my mind is like I have really long hair and I like tend to take care of it, and I spend money on good shampoos.
By take care of it, he means he blow dries hair sprays every single day,
I
multiple
do.
times a day.
Good,
Not
good.
multiple times a day. I take care of my hair. I love my hair and it's a piece of me. But the thing is like my mother and my sister, and we all go to the same hairstylist, and she's been cutting my hair since I was like a wee little baby.
But it's when you could fit in her hand.
Yeah, just a wee little baby. But the thing is like, dude, I know for a fact that every haircut I ever get, even if I'm getting it layered or if I'm getting my split ends done and like trimmed up and everything, it costs me $20 for like my long hair. And like any other woman going to another salon, like 70, 120 plus tip, and it's like,
That's crazy.
Why the fuck does that
your
happen?
mom and your sister pay more for her?
Oh yeah, and I'm not
Do you
mad about it.
yeah.
I tip her well. I tip her like $10-15 every time, so I'm paying like almost $40 for a
I
haircut.
thought you were gonna say 10-15%.
You know,
I was like, damn.
But you know what I mean? It's like, but it comes down, and she's very old, but it comes down to the fact it's like, why are women having to pay? Like, where's that fucking tax coming from? That's such bullshit.
Well, you know, you could look at it two ways. Like, also these people that they're getting their haircut from are like living off of their trade.
Mm-hmm. Skilled workers.
So, and they're not making what, you know, a man in a corporate job is making. And
Exactly.
or like a cop, and they went to more school than a cop did. So it's all in how you look at it. I do think that beauty can be really toxic in terms of like needing to look a certain way, needing to have a certain like brand that is like a status symbol. It's like designer clothes. And how much of designer, there's this weird thing with like designer clothes where like a lot of Gucci stuff is, if you look at like the Diet Prada website, you can see how much of designer stuff is stolen from indie artists.
Oh yeah.
And then and then regurgitated from by like Target and Walmart like after. So it's this really, really strange cycle.
I've seen you post about that.
So yeah,
Specifically your friend who made those basketball handbags.
Basketball handbags.
Right? Didn't you say, like, I remember you posting something, you were like, you tag somebody and you're like, watch out, they're coming for you. And it was like people who had like taken sports equipment and made like handbags out of it.
Oh God, that sounds familiar, but I'm sure.
And then it was just getting regurgitated through like Gucci and like other places like that.
I feel like
that definitely happens all the time. I mean, the Banksy or not Banksy, Revoke. The what was that with Kohl's or something?
H&M.
H&M. Yeah, I mean,
graffiti artist.
the same sort of thing happens all the time. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so like I choose to embrace that kind of stuff in terms of like no idea of mine is original. I probably stole it from someone without even knowing it because of all of like how
many people there are in the world doing art.
Yeah, and like also how like connected to phones we are and how we scroll and like how much of is something that I see, something that I like in my head to shoot? Is it something that I actually saw on Instagram 2 years ago that I'm just like thinking would look good here because I've seen it look good before?
Or the complete opposite too, where you haven't seen it at all and it comes naturally from your brain, but then like you might have the zero clue that like Joe Schmo down the street just did a shoot that was the exact same thing.
Oh yeah,
you know?
because we're living simultaneously in the same culture that like, and we're getting, so it like, it like leads to itself. So I think like people get really, you stole my stuff. And I just, I don't think like, cool, take it as a compliment. Move on.
Yeah, I think a good way to kind of handle like people copying your style or like doing it in that sense, I've always looked at it, I mean, I've seen it done with a couple different techniques that I've do, where it's like, oh, like we just talked about that last week and I see it. Like other people would get like really mad and like upset about that, but in the same sense, like I kind of look at it in the sense like they're appreciating your work enough to like try and emulate it and do it. So like in a sense feel honored that people are kind of copying or doing that sense. But
yeah, it's everything is how you choose to look at it. And I have good days and bad days. So
I've never done anything cool enough that someone's stolen. So
I mean, I don't think
I'm not there yet.
I don't think I can't think of anything that I know someone has like jocked my thing.
which, I mean, that's so hard to even classify too. Like, I mean, the instances that I'm thinking of that it's like might have happened to me, like who's to say that I was even the first person to do that technique or whatever too, you know? So it's everyone's sharing, everyone's copying everyone.
Yeah. I think that's the point. But the amount of times that I know that I've like seen a photo and been like, oh, I want to try to do something like this. Mm-hmm. And that it never comes out looking the way that it looked originally.
100%.
Like in their photo, and that's probably better for me, you know, because it's not about, I don't want to say that's even better for me. It's like, okay, I see this thing, I think it's cool. How do I make it my own? And like, and it comes through like also trying to do it. So
that was like the biggest part of like finding, I mean, I still haven't perfected my style, I would say, but like just shaping that style is like seeing other people's work that inspire you or that you like, and like reverse engineering that. I think I've touched on it before
we talked
too.
about it on one of the earlier podcasts.
But just like reverse engineering these like pieces. Like, I mean, there's this artist Circle Math who originally did the faceless stuff that I've done like a couple of, but like just reverse engineering, figuring out how they did it, and in tune naturally you're going to find your own little quirks and ways to like tweak it and make it your own. So I think that's definitely a valid way of like, even if it's like never sees the light of day and you're just practicing Photoshop techniques or like how to get that certain look and stuff, like even if you're going like straight off of someone else's work, like it's practice, you know? I mean,
I do Photoshop skill drills all the time.
Yeah, you sharpen your sword, basically, is what it is.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that like an actual thing? Or you just
No. I like just look at a photo and I go, like I was in New York and in August, and I love to walk around cities and take photos, like windows and like houses, and I really need to do it in Detroit more. I've not done it in Detroit, but I've done it in Florida. I've done it in New York, and the photos are beautiful. It's like musings to me. It's like a little essay in a photo that has no people in it, but it's like where people have been.
Yeah.
So, and there was just, I took a photo where there was a bunch of vines on the, what would it be, like the metal guard over the window, like protecting.
Oh, yeah, I get what you're saying.
And there was a bunch of vines, and I'm like, cool, I want all those vines to go away. And that shit took me 3 hours, but it looked damn good and like a fucking window without that. And I'm never going to post that photo, but I learned so much just by doing that.
Fill and all that.
Yeah, and it was stuff I knew how to do, but in a way I hadn't done it before. And so sometimes I like to go see a photo that I'm working on and, oh, let me see what this would look like. I don't think I'm going to use it, but I'm going to see what I can do.
I actually just did that same exact thing, but with a fence at the Nature Conservatory. I removed a fence from this picture that I took. Just again, like a practice thing to see like if I could do it, because it was like this gridded fence, basically like what we're seeing right here, where it's like taking up the whole photo, but like being able to select it all and just practice those little technical skills with content aware fill and then blending it and getting it where it needs to be. I think good practice.
God, I barely use content aware anything.
Do you?
I do a lot of stuff just by like normal clone stamp.
Yeah.
I don't use a mouse. I use a tablet and I use my trackpad.
Ooh, like a Wacom?
Yeah, I use a Wacom, and then I should just use the mouse on the Wacom sometimes. But the pressure sensitivity like fucks with my clone stamp. Sometimes like I'm like, no, I just want it.
So you can actually like, when you're in the mask, you can like lightly do it, and it's like a lesser opacity, and you can really.
Yeah. But
I need to get me one of those.
Oh, it's great.
I've really been needing to get a Wacom and stuff, but that's cool. I didn't know it really integrated with Photoshop like that, to where like with your masks, it's like.
I feel like this is so boring for the people that are listening, but
Trey, can you pass me that SD card case?
What I wanted to say is there's now these new Wacom like tablet computers. They're like $2,800.
Oh, geez.
But you can just like what I want an iPad to do, and it won't. Like just edit right on the photo, and with pressure sensitivity, it would be so cool.
Well, don't they make Wacom tablets where you can like see the actual image? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but it's like an actual computer too, and so like Photoshop is like in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see
like
what you're saying.
Where like on an iPad you have to use the cloud, and they don't like the tools don't like
Transfer.
1-to-1.
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's the same with like the Lightroom class or whatever the Lightroom mobile is or something.
It's
horrible.
Dumb. Yeah.
Horrible.
So I love talking about gear with you guys, because I never talk about gear with really anybody besides maybe Connery.
I mean, that was kind of the whole reason why we started this podcast, is because I mean, like for me especially, gear and like camera and like this whole thing is like the only thing that I can hold conversation with people. So I was like, let's talk about this stuff with people, because I mean we don't really, I mean, besides with John, I don't really talk to people besides just engulfing or just eating all this information. So it's nice to.
Well, I feel like your podcast with Garrett is going to be really gear heavy.
Yeah, that'll be
It's
fun.
going to be 7 hours of
Gear and whiskey.
yeah. Where's my whiskey?
It's what time is it? Well, it's getting a little late. Almost 5.
We're all back with some 10-1s. We're good. We're ready to go. We've only got a little bit of time left here. I wanted to talk to Miles more about some of the interesting work that she was talking about when she came here today. And I don't know if that's something that you want to introduce.
I mean, you were on a shoot this morning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, today was
Do you want to put that mic in front of your face?
Oh.
Do you want to flip that too real quick?
Am I in position?
You are in position.
Okay, cool. So, I can't say too much about individual shoots, but I do a lot of work with companions and sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Just try and talk like right into the center.
Is this good?
Perfect.
Cool. I'm just going to repeat what I said. Essentially, a lot of my business comes from working with sex workers and companions and providers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what that is, those are living, breathing human beings that you go on dates with, and you pay to go on those dates, and you take care of them very, very well.
And is the term escort not a
I'm not.
correct term anymore?
I know that it's not the term that my clients use.
Okay.
They prefer to be called a companion or a provider.
Okay.
I think a lot of that comes from like stigma of what an escort could be, or just like the weird 90s connotation of what that is, and like 80s connotation where like it's way more than that, and but it is a service that's being provided too. And a lot of people are now with the internet, I think, and the way that Sesta Fosta has kind of really made it unsafe for sex workers to exist.
Sesta Fosta. What is that term?
I'm the wrong person to be going into any kind of detail about this, but Sesta Fosta was a Trump era law that was enacted that pretty much made it illegal for like Craigslist or Backpage. Backpage is an acting thing.
No, I think Backpages. You're right. That's like where you can find the
like it
fun stuff.
It essentially made it like illegal for you to advertise on a bunch of these sites, but a lot of those sites also were places where like clients could be rated and vetted, and there was a lot of security within those pages, not Craigslist specifically. I don't know. I've never went searching to find a companion. So
Even though all those politicians, probably do that themselves all the time.
Oh, 1,000%. So now I think most of my clients use Twitter and Instagram, and a lot of it is, your photos that so I do a lot of those photos, and that's great. That's fun.
It is crazy how Twitter has kind of turned into the wild, wild west, if you will.
Well, it's like one of the only pages besides maybe OnlyFans that you can really do, like put on there what you want, but still sometimes certain things get taken down and sometimes they don't. Right?
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not really
now
on
you can
Twitter
see.
too much. I need to be on there more as Instagram becomes more of a like holier than thou place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely less censorship on Twitter, and I mean that's probably the main reason on why people use it as that kind of outlet. So
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that entail? Like, do you want to go into detail about some of that stuff, or?
It depends on the shoot, but a lot of times it just is like taking neck down photos of like bodies in like sexy positions, and then those images being used so that like for websites, like for the individual provider's website, to then get clients for their livelihoods, and or like it can be used on their OnlyFans, or like the BTS of the shoot will go on the OnlyFans for like someone for an extra like few dollars to look at. I'm not really sure how OnlyFans works, but I think it's like you can pay more for more.
Yeah, it's like a subscription-based thing.
Yeah.
get the premium subscription.
I feel like it's set up for users so they can do whatever the hell they want with it, which is good.
It's insane the amount of money that some people are making off of those sites and stuff.
Oh, it's great.
It's a good thing.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I know a couple people that have made well over 6 figures just doing strictly that. So
yeah, and they're not like meeting anybody in person.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So
no, strictly like feet pictures.
that's so cool. You got to get into that stuff at the right time, though.
Yeah, and I guess have the
Become your own
how do you,
boss
like,
and
gain
marketer
that
and everything.
audience too. I feel like it's hard to get yourself
Yeah,
out there in a
but
sense without, and especially if you want to remain anonymous and stuff. So then it's like you're really starting from ground zero, which is like
yeah, you want to
it's difficult.
remain anonymous. You also want to remain safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like even people that are face out, like remaining safe is really important because it's dangerous if no one knows what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to plug a different podcast.
Yeah.
While I'm on this one, my friend runs it. It's called The Galaxy, the Sex Workers Guide to the Galaxy.
Nice.
And pretty much the host just interviews like people in the sex working industry. So she interviews sex workers, porn stars, people involved. You could find everything that I'm fumbling through to talk to you about. She is a great resource for.
Okay.
And it's really cool. Like
That sounds awesome.
Interesting. Go check out the Sex Workers Guide to the Galaxy podcast.
yeah.
I'm sure on all the main streaming platforms.
Definitely.
Is there anything else that you want to plug other than obviously yourself?
I guess you can
And Ghost and
Kelsey, hair artist, at hair artist Kelsey. She's amazing. Katie at Katie Create, CAIDY, Create, CREATE, Ghost Artistry. Ghost is moving to LA in January. So I feel like it's a good time for both of us. Like I'm going to focus more on like the artistic side of photography without relying so much, I think, on theatrical makeup and which I have been doing. And I have been starting to gear away from it, I'm trying to say.
okay.
And she's gonna go out there and just fucking murder LA.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like not afraid for her at all. And usually I'd be like, you're gonna have saved up so much money, and
LA is hard.
LA is hard.
Really hard.
But
It's a cesspool out there, man. It's oversaturated. It's expensive.
well, it's different though because we were just out there in November. We had a job, and a lot of creatives have left because of COVID. So there is kind of room for people to come out. And I think if you have the right attitude and you're willing to stick it out, like
Attitude and like going out there with a plan, I feel like is a huge thing. Because I mean, I hear a lot of people going out there and either coming back or just figuring it out. It's not for them because they like. So many people go to LA in hopes to find that something, you know? And I mean, that's not to say that can't be done, but like that's what everyone and their mom is kind of doing. Like that's the LA thing to do, if you will. So
yeah.
it's hard, and I feel like if you are to go to LA, like it's good to have a plan or like a connection out there, because like I said, everyone goes out there in hopes to meet that connection, where it's like it's not where you are, it's who you are.
Sometimes. And sometimes it's how hard you work, and sometimes it's none of those things. Like,
it just depends on how it aligns for everybody.
yeah, I think Ghost has really got amazing ambition for good reason, and she is going to, and she's kind of like done as much as she can in Detroit, literally, and
You can definitely outgrow your city, so.
like
That's a good thing.
so even if she goes out there and like at least she fucking tried.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
Knock it till you try it.
and Connery McModel, my love, definitely check him out. He's a great photographer, painter. He's sexy.
Definitely seen him in some of your photos, looking fine as hell.
Yeah,
And he's fun. Like you guys like play around. Like he definitely goes outside the average norm of like what a man would feel comfortable doing.
yeah. Well, he's just like not hung up on his masculinity.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
He lets me do whatever I want, and that's really exciting and
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And it keeps things like,
Lively.
I'm sure that's a blast for you.
yeah, it's
Without going into too much detail, it's fun.
we have a lot of fun, yeah. And you know who else I should plug would be Willa Ray Music. She's an incredible vocalist. We just watched The Sound of Music last night, and we were singing along, but then I was shutting up just to listen to her sing.
Yeah, I miss Willow. I never get to spend enough time with her.
Yeah, she's amazing. And her band is Valerie the Vulture, and stay tuned in Detroit for some of her shows. And I don't know, go to the things in Detroit if you're not afraid of wearing a mask. And there's a lot of really cool people. The city is bigger than people think. And I feel like every month I'm like, oh, there's this new creative I didn't know anything about. Like, what?
Do you have any, like, what's your next big move? I know, like, if Ghost is going out there, like, what is the next, like, idea that you have?
Okay. Detroit has been nothing but good to me. I'm not sure I want to leave this city. The winters make me rethink that decision. I want to be able to travel. I want to spend the next year kind of where I'm at, and like because of COVID and like trying to really figure out what my direction is. I want to spend like the next year focusing on like improving my skills and getting better and learning new things that I've always wanted to learn. Trey's supposed to give me a little tutorial in animation tonight, something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'm also hopefully going to be learning more about like creating my own like tintypes, which we talked a little bit about before the podcast.
Yeah.
So like I'm really just trying to learn as much as I can and stay like in it for the art. So
Yeah.
I love it.
Not selling out to a corporate gig.
no, I will try as long as possible not to, but it gets hard. It's expensive. This craft is also extremely expensive, and Detroit, it doesn't pay market value. So not that I'm not getting paid what my skills are worth, because some people look at my prices and they're like, oh, you're so expensive. And some people look at my prices and they're like, wow, you're so cheap.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just doing the best that I can, and I don't have a manager or anybody. So
Well, I think you're doing great. I mean, kind of like what we touched on at the beginning of the podcast, like you started from scratch. It's grassroots. You've evolved. You've curated a following where people feel safe and comfortable around you. And you've even like branched out to doing things that aren't necessarily within the social norms, like, with sex workers and other things like that. And that is built upon credibility and trust.
yeah. Well, but I would so much rather help someone like work their own business and have their own autonomy than work for a brand whose values don't align with mine.
Of course. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why I work with people more on a one-on-one basis, because when it comes to branding, you kind of have to be a special brand to work with me in a sense. And also you probably don't want to work with me then. Like,
if you're even asking yourself that in the first place.
yeah. So there's a lot of talented photographers out there that, it doesn't have to be me.
Some people's souls are worth more than others,
Yeah.
Not going to sell it so soon, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, I've sold it in a lot of small ways, I'm sure.
Little bits and pieces.
We all
Yeah.
have. I mean, it is the toxicity of the industry that we work in. So
Yeah. And it's also impossible not to, even the things that you don't know at the time, and then you find out. So
from experience.
yeah. So here we are. We're all just doing the best. And there's really no great role models, especially in this city where there's a clean way to do something, and like an industry standard here is the thing. So I'm just doing what I can the best way I know how, and learning every step of the way.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool because one of the most difficult things with me and Trey is competing against like agencies and like big production houses and stuff like that. And
So you're who everyone's like, they underbid. They're
yeah, well, that, but at the same time, it's just like, how can we even compete with certain people, because like our price point is our rates, and we don't have a giant like insurance package and bunch of employees that we have to pay. So like a lot of those prices for those bigger production companies go to those things,
yeah.
So it's like, but I mean, we can still do the things that we can, but then it also comes down to like, what's right and what's not right, so
Yeah, I'm with you. What is that? Cool.
we trying.
Sweet.
Well, thank you for having me. This was
Yeah, of course. I think this is wrapping up our 5th episode here. Can't thank you enough to take time out of your day and come chat with us.
Yeah,
course.
and I want to bring you back on soon too, because I feel like we barely even got to scratch the surface of a lot of things.
Oh,
I still
yeah.
want to talk to you about your travels and all that other stuff too. I think it's just an excuse to get my friends in front of my face and
Cool.
talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great conversations, great people. We can do it again.
That's how I socialize, is through photography a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I really only see people on set. So
Yeah.
otherwise, I'm in a cave.
Editing.
in the creative suite.
Yeah, me too. Come to this thing. I'm
it's
sorry.
nice to verbalize and talk to people face to face. So
Yeah.
we'll do this again.
If you, it's like what your grandpa said. If what you do is working what you love, blah 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 blah. You know what I'm trying to say.
All right, guys.
So real quick, let's plug everything again. Nomadic Madame, is that underscore, period, or just one word?
All right. My name is Miles Murray. My brand is Nomadic Madam. My website is www.nomadicmadam.com. My Instagram handle is nomadic_madam. I also have Nomadic Madam without an underscore, but I don't know the password, and I have been locked out of that,
Ooh.
and I never made a post. And then, I'm on Twitter, Nomadic Madam, and mostly everything is Nomadic. I don't know.
Yeah.
There is a nomadic mom out there that I think is also from Detroit that I've
Oh.
never met, but sometimes she comes up if
It's
she's
okay.
still active.
Chances are you will find Miles if you Google Nomadic Man.
Yeah, or Miles Murray. I'm
Yeah.
like, there was on Instagram a Murray Miles.
Uh-oh.
This was back when my Instagram was Miles Murray, and we followed each other. And
Oh,
that
that's
was
funny.
and liked each other's stuff, and it was real cute for a minute.
I'm in a Facebook group called Jonathan Downings of the World Unite.
Oh my God, how many are you?
There's like 15 of us, but like the one who runs it is just like me, so it's full of memes, and he's just like, "What's up, everybody? Like, get this bread. Let's do it." And I'm just like, "Hell yeah, Jonathan Downing from California. Let's do it."
That's hilarious.
But okay, so obviously you can follow me at camera.cowboy. Trey Sarmento is just one word, Trey Sarmento.
And check out my website if you haven't already. I feel like no one has seen my website.
I didn't even know you had a website, bro.
tsarmento.com.
Yeah.
Bing bow. That's my portfolio. So you can take a peek if you want.
Hell yeah, definitely do that.
Get that engagement up.
If you have any questions directed to Miles or to us, you can email us at askdropcast@gmail.com. We'll obviously redirect them toward her. Or you can just hit her up on Instagram and hope she's not too busy to get back to you. Our Instagram obviously is what is it? Is it the.dropcast? Yeah.
Something like that.
Whatever. You're there. Spotify, Apple Music, all that good shit. Thanks, guys.
Cue music.
Ba-ba-da-ba.